The moment you open your mouth to explain yourself, you have already lost. Picture it. The accusation lands, a subtle jab at a dinner party, a comment not meant to seek the truth, but to test your posture. You feel your stomach turn, your throat tighten. The instinct is immediate. Explain, clarify, defend. It feels like survival. But in that instant, without realizing it, you've surrendered your position. You've accepted the courtroom. And worse, you've agreed to play the role of the accused. Stoicism teaches us something uncomfortable but liberating. You are not responsible for how others interpret your silence, your boundaries, or your truth. You are only responsible for your own integrity. Do not beg to be seen. Be still, be certain. Let the storm pass while you stand rooted like the oak. And if you feel that pull toward stillness, toward clarity, toward becoming immovable in a world that thrives on reaction, then consider subscribing. For you, for the part of you that is ready to stop defending and start living aligned. It starts so small. A shrug, a glance, a question that sounds innocent but cuts just deep enough to make you flinch. And in that moment, something ancient inside you wakes up. A reflex older than language, built into your bones. You open your mouth, you explain, you offer context, clarity, softness. You defend your name, your character, your intentions, without ever stopping to ask who exactly gave them the authority to question it in the first place. It's almost automatic, this surrender, and it doesn't come from weakness. It comes from the desperate human need to be understood, to make sure others see the version of ourselves we want them to. But the moment you step into that role, the moment you start playing defense, you've already accepted their frame. You've confirmed, even silently, that their judgment matters more than your own calm, more than your inner compass. That's the invisible prison we walk into willingly, built not with bars, but with explanations. We think we're clarifying, but we're performing, hoping our words will smooth over the discomfort, trying to shape how we're seen, as if perception were a mirror we could polish. But it's not a mirror. It's a funhouse reflection, warped by the projections of the person looking at you. And yet we twist ourselves anyway, trying to fix what was never our responsibility in the first place. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus said, "If someone speaks badly of you, do not defend yourself against the accusations, but reply, 'He obviously does not know me very well, since there are so many other faults he could have mentioned.'" That's not sarcasm. That's detachment. That's power. Because when you stop defending, you step out of the role they cast you in. You become something they can't control, and people don't like what they can't define. There is a strange kind of freedom in realizing you are not obligated to be understood, that your integrity doesn't shrink when someone misinterprets you, that your worth isn't under threat every time someone disagrees. But to live this way, you have to break a lifelong habit, one that was etched into you early, when love felt conditional and safety depended on being good. You had to explain yourself to avoid punishment, to win back connection, to feel safe again, and you carried that pattern into adulthood, not realizing that the same strategy now weakens you. You're not a child anymore. You don't need to convince anyone to let you exist in peace. You already have that right. And the people who demand explanations from you are often not seeking truth. They're seeking leverage. Your defense becomes the rope they use to pull you around. So the next time your heart starts racing at the sound of judgment, when your palms sweat and your voice prepares its counterattack, pause. Ask yourself, what happens if I don't? What happens if I let the comment float in the air, untouched? Most of the time, it dies there. Without your energy feeding it, the accusation starves. People are used to controlling others through emotional reaction. But when you stay still, When you don't try to be seen or approved of or redeemed, they have nothing to push against. You become a wall of calm. You don't swing. You don't fall. You remain. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. You are the gatekeeper of your reaction. The moment you accept that, you realize the power you've been giving away wasn't taken, it was volunteered. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. You notice how often you explain to be liked, to be forgiven, to avoid discomfort. You catch yourself justifying harmless choices to strangers. You realize how often your peace is traded for temporary approval. But something shifts when you stop, when you resist the urge to plead your case and instead let your actions speak for you. You begin to build an internal gravity, something heavy and solid that doesn't get tossed around by every wind of criticism. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who others think you should be, not who they feel comfortable with, who you are. And who you truly are doesn't need a press release every time someone misunderstands you. So let them misunderstand. Let them build their stories. Let them talk. Your job is not to edit their perceptions, it's to live aligned with your own truth. That doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means being grounded. Respond when necessary, but never out of desperation. Speak when it serves purpose, not when it serves your ego." Seneca reminds us, "No man can live a happy life, or even a bearable life, without the pursuit of wisdom." And wisdom rarely shouts. It does not argue. It stands, quietly, consistently, in full possession of itself. When you no longer feel the need to explain, you begin to experience a new kind of power, not loud power, not the kind that needs recognition, but silent power, anchored power. You become untouchable not because you fight harder, but because you've stopped showing up to battles that were never yours to begin with. You're no longer a defendant in someone else's courtroom. You're something else entirely. A person who knows that being misunderstood is a small price to pay for being free. You didn't choose this habit. It was carved into you, quietly, over time, long before you had the words to resist it. Back then, defending yourself wasn't a sign of insecurity. It was the only way to feel safe. You were a child in a world where misunderstanding could mean punishment, rejection, even the withdrawal of love. So you learned to respond quickly. "I didn't mean to. That's not what happened. Please believe me." And with each explanation, you weren't just protecting yourself from consequences. You were reaching for connection. You were defending your place in the tribe. But that survival instinct, as useful as it once was, has now turned against you. Because you've grown, but the defense reflex hasn't. You've changed roles, but you still react like a child in trouble. And the tragedy is, most people never realize that the thing they think is keeping them safe is actually what's keeping them small. So when someone questions you now, your motives, your tone, your worth, you respond like you're being put on trial. But there is no courtroom. That's the illusion. There is no judge with the power to take away your value. No jury with the right to decide your fate. There's only another person filtering the world through their own fears and assumptions. And when you rush to defend, what you're really doing is treating their opinion like truth. You're saying, "Your view of me is more real than my own, and nothing will exhaust you faster than constantly chasing validation in a world built on projection." You become a puppet to everyone's mood, a reflection of whoever has the strongest voice in the room. And that's no way to live. The deeper problem is this: defending yourself becomes your identity. You start believing your job in life is to prove that you're good, that you're kind, that you're worthy. But that isn't integrity. It's a performance. True character doesn't need defense. It simply is, like a mountain, solid, unmoved by passing winds. But when you rely on others to approve of you, your self-respect becomes fragile, easily shattered by criticism, easily manipulated by guilt. You overextend yourself to win back love. You agree to things you don't believe in just to avoid being misunderstood. You keep explaining yourself to people who aren't even listening. And each time you do, you confirm that their approval is more important than your peace. To break this pattern, you don't need to become colder. You don't need to become someone who doesn't care. You need to become someone who sees clearly, who recognizes that most accusations aren't about truth, they're about control. Someone is uncomfortable with your boundaries, your growth, your clarity, and instead of sitting with that discomfort, they try to shift it onto you, and you, trained by years of conditioning, rush in to make it better. But what if you didn't? What if you let them sit with their own discomfort instead of carrying it for them? That's what it means to reclaim your strength, to refuse to carry emotions that aren't yours. Seneca said, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." Every time you try to prevent someone from misjudging you, you suffer twice, once from the fear and again from the reaction. And the irony is, the more you try to be understood, the more misunderstood you become, because your constant defense makes people question your confidence. They begin to believe the story you're trying so hard to disprove. The more you try to seem trustworthy, the more suspicious you look. And deep down, you feel it, that quiet shame, that hollow feeling of never being quite good enough, no matter how much you explain. But that shame isn't a flaw, it's a compass. It's pointing you back toward the place where you gave away your power. Carl Jung said, "Shame is a soul-eating emotion, and the only way to starve it is to stop feeding it with explanations, to stop saying, 'Please see me,' and start saying, 'I see myself,' and that's enough." The world will not always understand you. That's not a problem to be solved. That's a reality to be accepted, because understanding is not owed to you, and you do not need it to stand tall. When you stop living for approval, you start living from alignment. And from that place, everything changes. Your energy becomes focused. Your relationships become cleaner. Your sense of self becomes indestructible. Socrates once said, "To find yourself, think for yourself." So think for yourself, speak for yourself, but do not beg to be seen. You are not here to be digested comfortably by every person you meet. You are here to live fully and honestly, and that will always be misunderstood by some. And that's okay, because when you are no longer trained to submit, you are finally free to stand, and silence, chosen, not forced, becomes your most powerful answer. There's something inside almost everyone that quietly begs to be seen. Not in the shallow way, not just attention, but deeply, truly seen. To be understood without needing to perform. To be known without being reduced. It's such a soft ache that most people never speak of it. They just carry it into every interaction, hoping that if they say the right words, if they explain things clearly enough, if they can just stay kind, polite, and articulate, then finally, someone will look at them and say, "I get you." But the truth? That day rarely comes, because most people aren't listening to understand. They're listening to categorize, to confirm what they already believe, or worse, to gain the upper hand. And every time you defend yourself, you're placing that hope of being understood into hands that were never meant to hold it. You're not defending yourself because you love conflict. You're doing it because you want peace. But the path you're taking, this endless chase to be understood, is the very thing stealing your peace. You speak not because it's necessary, but because you feel invisible. You over-explain because you're afraid of being misjudged. You open your chest again and again, hoping that this time someone won't cut you with their assumptions. But no matter how carefully you craft your words, no matter how generous your tone, the ones determined to misunderstand you will always find a way. And the more you try to correct them, the more tangled it gets. Because every defense you offer confirms that their opinion matters more than your own, that their misunderstanding of you has the power to define you. And the second you accept that, you've already lost your footing. There is a quiet kind of strength in those who no longer explain, not because they're bitter, not because they've given up, but because they've found something deeper than approval. They've found alignment, and alignment doesn't beg to be recognized. It simply is, like a flame that burns whether or not anyone sees it. The more you speak just to be seen, the more power you give away. You're handing out the keys to your emotional state to people who haven't earned the right to hold them. And when you do that, even with the best intentions, you slowly start to drift from yourself. You become someone who performs honesty rather than living it. You decorate your words with just enough truth to be convincing, but deep down, you know you're speaking to be liked, not to be free. There's a strange power in that, letting them be wrong, not out of arrogance but out of clarity. Out of the quiet, grounded confidence that says, if you don't see me, that's fine. I see me. That's not giving up. It's choosing peace. Because you realize that no amount of defending, no amount of proving will ever give you the safety that comes from being rooted in your own truth. And the more you lean into that, the more freedom you'll feel. You'll stop needing to be the hero in someone else's story. You'll stop trying to control how they write your chapter. You'll let them tell whatever story they need to, because you know it doesn't change who you are. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject. And who knows more about you than you? Who sees your heart, your process, your struggle, your growth better than you do?" That's the foundation you need. Not applause, not agreement, just presence, just truth, quiet, unshakable, yours. When that becomes enough, when you stop trying to be seen and start choosing to be sovereign, everything changes. The noise fades, the chaos quiets, and you realize you never needed to be explained. You only needed to be remembered. Remembered by the one person whose understanding truly matters. Yourself. There's something almost unbearable about being accused, not because the accusation itself is always true, but because it challenges the image you've spent so long building of being fair, kind, careful, thoughtful. And in that moment, when someone calls you selfish or arrogant or cold, your first instinct is to jump in, to set the record straight. You feel it rise like a wave, this pressure to explain, to clarify, to show them who you really are. But what if you didn't? What if you let that wave pass without riding it? What if, instead of defending yourself, you just stayed still? That kind of silence is rare, and it terrifies people. Because when you don't react, they lose their script. They were expecting resistance, a counterattack, maybe even an apology. Something they could use to push their narrative forward. But when you just breathe and hold your ground, the spotlight quietly turns back on them. Your silence becomes a mirror, one that doesn't offer comfort or excuses, one that reflects not who you are, but who they are, their tone, their assumptions, their own unresolved fears. Suddenly, they're left with themselves, and that can be deeply uncomfortable. Most people aren't ready for someone who doesn't flinch. We've been conditioned to believe that silence is weakness, that if you don't defend yourself, it must mean you're guilty. But silence is only weakness when it's rooted in fear. When it's grounded in strength, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes presence, weight, gravity, the kind of stillness that changes the energy in a room without a word. The kind of silence that doesn't beg to be understood because it already understands itself. This isn't passive, it's not retreat. It's restraint with purpose. It's what happens when you decide that your peace is more important than their validation. There's power in being unreadable, in not broadcasting your emotions for others to dissect, in not giving away your reactions to people who haven't earned access to your inner world. You don't owe anyone your energy just because they've chosen to be loud. You don't have to match their chaos, and when you don't, it reveals everything. They call you arrogant because you don't chase their approval. They call you cold because you don't melt under pressure. They call you selfish because you stopped putting their comfort above your clarity. But their labels say more about them than they ever will about you. And in your stillness, that becomes obvious. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And what that really means is, don't give away your self-control in an attempt to make someone else understand your character. Don't descend into their noise. Don't become a mirror of their panic, because the moment you do, you've lost your grounding. But when you remain calm, composed, centered, you remind the world that not every fire needs to be answered with more flames. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing, not as avoidance, not as punishment, but as discipline. Stillness isn't the absence of emotion. It's the refusal to be ruled by it. You can feel everything, hurt, anger, disappointment, and still choose silence. You can carry your truth without displaying it like a shield. You can choose not to defend because you already know who you are. And if that knowing is strong enough, what someone else says or believes or projects onto you doesn't matter. Their judgment passes through you like wind through trees. It rustles your branches, but it never moves your roots. And that's what real strength looks like. Not dominance, not control, but deep, quiet self-respect. The kind that doesn't need to shout, the kind that doesn't get pulled into every battle, the kind that understands not every accusation needs a reply, and not every critic deserves a conversation. You become a mountain, and mountains don't kneel. You become the eye of the storm, still, steady, unshaken, while everything else spins around you. And that is a kind of presence people feel even if they can't name it. A kind of energy they remember long after the moment has passed. Stillness, when practiced consistently, becomes a kind of reputation. Not the reputation you chase, but the one that follows you anyway. People begin to sense that you're not easily rattled, that you don't engage unless it matters, that your silence isn't absence, it's awareness. You're not ignoring them, you're observing. And in that pause, they're forced to look at themselves, to wonder why they needed you to react, to confront the fact that maybe it was never about you in the first place. Carl Jung once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." When you remain still, you invite others to confront their own projections, not by forcing them to, but by refusing to play along. You offer no resistance, and in doing so, you give them the rare opportunity to reflect. Most won't take it, but the few who do, they'll change, and even if they don't, you remain unchanged, and that's enough. Aristotle believed that knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom, but defending yourself constantly keeps you from that knowing. It keeps you tangled in performance. Stillness, on the other hand, gives you space to reflect, to align, to choose. You stop reacting, you start responding. And sometimes the best response is no response at all. Eventually you realize you don't need to prove your worth in the middle of someone else's storm. You don't need to shout over their noise. You don't need to hand them your piece like it's a bargaining chip. You sit in silence, not to punish them, but to protect yourself. And in that stillness, you remember, you are not here to be controlled by chaos. You are here to embody something deeper, something that doesn't break when the world pushes, something that doesn't need to defend because it cannot be shaken. You are here to be still, and in that stillness, powerful beyond measure. Truth and identity are not the same. When someone says, "You failed," and they're right, there's strength in saying, "Yes, I did," not from a place of defeat, but from clarity. That kind of honesty doesn't shrink you. It expands you, because it shows you're not afraid of owning your actions. But the moment they turn that truth into a label, you're a failure. You owe them nothing. That's no longer about the moment. That's about control. That's about shaping how you see yourself. And if you accept that frame, if you start arguing inside that courtroom, you've already lost something essential: your stillness. When you begin to see this clearly, your responses change. You stop fighting shadows. You stop reacting to every jab, every misinterpretation. You pause, you breathe, and instead of reacting, you reflect. Interesting you see it that way. That's one way to interpret it. These are not weak responses. They are boundaries in disguise. Because what you're really saying is, "I won't carry that with me." You're letting the weight stay where it belongs, on the person who threw it. And in doing so, you remind yourself that not every accusation is yours to process. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And that applies here. You are not what they call you. You are not the version of you that lives in someone else's opinion. You are the still point in the middle of the storm, the one who chooses how much of the world's noise becomes part of your narrative. If you absorb every harsh word, every projection, every unfair label, you'll spend your life in reaction mode, constantly fixing a version of yourself that only exists in someone else's head. But if you reflect instead of react, you stay rooted. You don't become the story they're trying to tell. That doesn't mean you avoid responsibility. Stoicism is not about detachment from truth. It's about detachment from distortion. When you mess up, own it, fully, quietly, with dignity. "I was wrong." That's enough. You don't need to decorate it. You don't need to defend your character, because your character doesn't live in that one moment. It lives in how you carry that moment forward. But when someone tries to stretch your mistake into a definition of who you are, when they take one act and try to build your entire identity around it, that's where your line must be drawn. Not in anger, not in aggression, but in quiet, unwavering clarity. Seneca reminds us, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." That applies not only to material things, but to validation. If you crave approval so badly that you react to every criticism, every judgment, you are poor in peace. True wealth, real power, comes from the ability to observe without needing to control. To hear something unkind and not let it enter your bloodstream. To know your own worth so deeply that even when someone questions it, you don't. That kind of strength can't be faked. It's earned, slowly, by choosing reflection over reaction one moment at a time. Sometimes you'll feel the heat rise, the instinct to correct, to protest, to defend. But if you can pause in that space, if you can let the silence stretch just long enough to see the situation for what it really is, you'll notice something. You'll see that most attacks aren't about you, they're about the attacker, their fear, their control, their insecurity. And if you react, you become part of their drama. But if you reflect, you reveal it. Your calm becomes a contrast to their chaos. Your clarity makes their manipulation obvious. And in that stillness, you reclaim your power, not by force, but by refusal. In the end, reacting is easy. It's a reflex. But reflecting, that's discipline, that's strength. It's the quiet art of staying centered while the world tries to pull you in every direction. It's understanding that your value was never something others had the authority to measure. You were never on trial, not unless you walked into their courtroom. So stop entering rooms where your worth is debated. Walk away. Hold your truth close. Let them speak. Let them wonder. But don't let them move you. That's the mark of someone who isn't just untouchable, but unshakable. People will still make comments. You're too much. Maybe. You're too distant. Possibly. You're not who I thought you were. Good. Because the moment you no longer need to be palatable is the moment you stop being a prisoner to other people's preferences. You don't flinch when misunderstood because you've let go of the fantasy that everyone must see you clearly. You don't explain when criticized because your self-worth doesn't hang in their hands anymore. And you don't shrink when judged because judgment loses its power when you've already looked in the mirror and made peace with what you see. This is where untouchability begins, not in perfection, but in ownership. You own your mess, you own your contradictions, you stop trying to seem noble and instead live with integrity. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And that's why so few people ever do. Because full acceptance means letting go of the performance. It means standing in the truth of who you are, even when it's inconvenient, even when it makes others uncomfortable. But once you do, you can no longer be manipulated by shame. You become immune to guilt trips, immune to social games designed to make you doubt your value. There's a kind of stillness that comes from this place. Not apathy, but calm. You don't lash out because there's nothing left to defend. You don't chase approval because your direction comes from within. You don't waste energy trying to manage how you're perceived because you know that perception is a reflection of the viewer, not the subject. You realize that you've been giving away your power every time you tried to fix how someone saw you. And now you take that power back, not with a scream, but with silence, with stillness, with self-possession. You were never meant to be a brand. You were never meant to fit into everyone's expectations. You are not a slogan, not a curated display of traits designed to make you more acceptable. You are a complex, layered human being, and the moment you embrace all of it, the light and the dark, you stop being a puppet to other people's approval. You stop dancing for acceptance. You become solid, grounded, whole. Seneca wrote, "No person has the power to have everything they want, but it is in their power not to want what they don't have, and to cheerfully put to good use what they do have." That includes your nature, your past, your scars, your strength. You stop wishing you were different. You stop wishing people saw you differently. You stop running from the parts of you that don't fit the script, and instead, you start showing up as you are, fully, without flinching. It's not about becoming cold. It's not about building walls. It's about releasing the fear that keeps you explaining, defending, apologizing for your existence. When you let go of that fear, your posture changes. You walk differently, you speak differently, you carry a presence that people feel without understanding. It's not arrogance, it's not detachment, it's alignment. It's the quiet presence of someone who no longer needs to perform. And that energy is magnetic, not because you're trying to be impressive, but because people are starved for authenticity. And when you live in alignment, you remind others of what they've buried in themselves. Plato once said, "The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself." And when you stop being ruled by the need to be liked, you win that war. You stop being prey. Not because you become aggressive, but because you're no longer available for the games that predators play. You see through manipulation. You don't bite when baited. You don't explain when cornered. You just hold your ground, steady, calm, untouched. This doesn't mean people stop trying to test you. If anything, they'll test you more. They'll push, provoke, try to shake your stillness. But the difference now is, it doesn't work, because your identity isn't on trial. Not anymore. You're not here to win arguments. You're not here to convince anyone that you're good. You're here to live fully, and that means letting go of the need to be explained. Eventually, people learn. They learn you're not a soft target, that your silence is not weakness, that your refusal to defend is not guilt. It's clarity. It's self-respect. It's the decision to no longer trade your peace for a place at their table. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And when your thoughts are rooted in truth, not approval, your soul takes on a shade that can't be diluted by outside judgment. Becoming untouchable isn't about rising above everyone. It's about sinking so deeply into who you are that no one else can move you. You stop being a shadow of what the world wants. You become the real thing, quiet, powerful, free. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to understand yourself so completely that misunderstanding no longer shakes you. Hold your ground, speak less, stand more, and let your presence do what words never could. If this spoke to something deep inside you, there's more waiting. Watch the next video on your screen. And thank you for walking this path with us. You are a vital part of Stoic Journal.